Let's talk about something that I am pretty sure affected every single one of us who's been to a grocery store in the last couple of years. We're going to unravel the wild mystery behind those shocking egg prices. And trust me, the answer is way more fascinating than you might think. You know the feeling, right? You're standing there in the dairy aisle, you look at the price tag for a carton of eggs, and you just think to yourself, wait, what? It seriously felt like overnight, this simple, everyday staple suddenly became a luxury item. What on earth was going on? Yep, $7.89. At its peak in some parts of the US, that's what a single dozen eggs could cost you. And no, that is not a typo. That's a massive price shock that hit millions of households right where it hurts, in the wallet. To really get how we got here, we've got to follow the whole story, from the farm all the way to your fridge. This whole event got a name, the Great Egg Price Spike. And we're not talking about a small fluctuation here. This was a full-blown crisis for one of our most basic foods. So the story really begins not with economics, but with biology. The main driver behind all of this was a massive, devastating viral outbreak that just ripped through America's poultry population, hitting the source of our egg supply directly. And the main culprit has a name: avian flu. More specifically, a really nasty strain called highly pathogenic avian influenza, or HPAI for short. And you should think of this less like a mild flu for chickens and more like well, like a wrecking ball for the entire egg industry. Okay, so here's where it gets really wild. This HPI strain was incredibly contagious and deadly. So to stop it from spreading, the US has this very strict, kind of brutal strategy called stamping out. What that means is if the virus is found in just one bird, the entire flock has to be culled. We are talking millions upon millions of birds, many of them perfectly healthy, being euthanized to prevent an even bigger catastrophe. And you can imagine what that did to the egg supply. It just fell off a cliff. So, supply dropped. But why did the price go completely through the roof? Well, this comes down to a really core idea in economics: inelasticity. Just think about it for a second. We don't just stop eating eggs when the price goes up a bit, right? They're a staple. Our demand stays pretty high. So when you have that steady demand, but the supply suddenly tanks, the prices have absolutely nowhere to go but straight up. A little dip in supply can create a huge spike in price. And, this whole biological disaster didn't just happen in a vacuum. The industry was already feeling the squeeze from rising costs for everything: chicken feed, fuel for the trucks, labor. So when the bird flu hit, it was like pouring gasoline on a fire that was already smoldering. So that seems like a pretty straightforward story, right? A virus hits, supply drops, prices go up, case closed. But this is where our whole explainer takes a really sharp turn, because what was happening in the United States was not happening everywhere else. And that brings up a really crucial question. Was the whole world suddenly paying $8 for a dozen eggs? Was this some kind of global phenomenon, or was there something unique going on right here in the US? And wow, this slide just lays out the puzzle perfectly. Look at this. While Americans were paying these record high prices, the cost for a dozen eggs in a country like Costa Rica was less than half that. I mean, sure, their prices went up a little, but it was nothing, absolutely nothing like the crisis in the US. So the real question isn't just why were US eggs so expensive, it's why was the US so different? To really understand that price difference, we have to look deeper into the very structure of the US system itself. And what it reveals is a classic trade-off: efficiency versus resilience. This table right here gets to the heart of the whole thing. The US system is built on this massive industrial scale. We're talking huge farms with millions of birds packed into high-density houses, all run by just a handful of giant producers. And it is incredibly efficient. But Costa Rica, it has a much more diverse system: smaller farms and even a lot of backyard flocks. And all that diversity acts as a kind of shock absorber. This quote really just nails the problem. Because the US system is so highly concentrated, a single shock can become absolutely catastrophic. When a disease like HPAI hits just one of those massive facilities, a huge chunk of the entire national supply can be wiped out instantly. There's simply no buffer. Now, beyond the farm structure, a few other things were at play. First, the simple fact is the bird flu just hit the US harder, period. But also, the US market is mostly self-contained. We produce what we eat. Costa Rica has more regional trade that can help balance out supply. And finally, like we talked about, American consumers just tend to keep buying eggs no matter the cost, which keeps pushing those prices high. So when you put all of that together, you get to this really powerful conclusion. What we all witnessed was the hidden cost of a system that has been designed for maximum efficiency above all else. So the crucial point is this. The mystery of the $8 eggs wasn't just about a virus. It was a story of two totally different systems. One, a hyper-efficient but very brittle industrial giant. The other, a more diverse and resilient network. When the same kind of pressure was applied to both, one shattered while the other one bent. And that leaves us with a critical question that goes so much further than just the breakfast table. We have built a food system that is incredible at producing huge amounts of food very cheaply. But this whole episode with eggs shows its deep vulnerability. It forces us to ask, have we optimized for efficiency at the expense of resilience? And what happens when the next shock hits a different aisle of the grocery store?